Hello and welcome to my YouTube. This YouTube is remembering the year 1938. I bet if I went out and asked 100 people, tell me one famous thing about the year 1938, nobody could answer it. And I'll confess, I couldn't name anything that happened in 1938. So we're both about to learn a lot about that year. Franklin D. Roosevelt was president in 1938. On January 3rd, the March of Dimes is established as a foundation to combat infant polio by President Roosevelt, who was himself a cripple. On January 16th, the famous 1938 Carnegie Hall Jazz Concert is recorded live when Benny Goodman and his orchestra become the first jazz musicians to headline a concert at Carnegie Hall in New York City. January 22nd, Thornton Wilder's play Our Town is performed for the first time anywhere in Princeton, New Jersey. I would like to have $1 for every time this play, Our Town, was presented at some high school in America. January 27th, the Niagara Bridge at Niagara Falls, New York collapses due to an ice jam. January 28th, the very first ski tow in America begins operation in Vermont. February 4th, Walt Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is the first cel animated feature in motion picture history, and it was released on this date. February 6th, Black Sunday at Bondi Beach, Sydney, Australia. 300 swimmers are dragged out to sea in 3 freak waves. 80 lifesavers save all but 5. Bondi Beach, very famous. In fact, I worked for Apple Computer for 30 years, and we named one of our Macintoshes after this. The color of this Macintosh is Bondi Blue, and we introduced this way back in 1998. I remember it well. March 3rd, the Santa Ana River in California spills over its banks during a rainy winter, killing 58 people in Orange County and causing trouble as far inland as Palm Springs, which is a long ways away. April 15th, Huey, Dewey, and Louie make their first appearance in a Disney animated short called Donald's Nephews. April 15th, the first appearance of the comic book superhero Superman in Action Comics. April 30th, the first cartoon to feature Bugs Bunny in the cartoon Porky's Hare Hunt. That was released on this date. May 12th, U.S. Secretary of State Cordell Hull rejects the Soviet Union's offer of a joint defense pact to counter the rise of Nazi Germany. May 28th, in a conference at the Reich Chancellery, Hitler declares his decision to destroy Czechoslovakia by military force, and he orders the immediate mobilization of his army. June 22nd, heavyweight boxing champion Joe Louis knocks out Max Schilling in the first round of their rematch at Yankee Stadium in New York City. On June 24th, a 450-ton meteorite explodes about 12 miles above the Earth near Chicora, Pennsylvania. This is the actual remains of what was left. On July 3rd, the last reunion of the Blue and Gray commemorates the 75th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg, which took place obviously in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I've been to this battlefield several times. Very emotional, very impressive. And these are all actual men who fought at Gettysburg. July 14th, Howard Hughes sets a new world record by completing a 91-hour airplane flight around the world. July 6th, the Evian Conference of Refugees is convened in France. No country in Europe is prepared to accept Jews fleeing persecution, and the United States will take only 27,370 of them. July 18th, Wrong Way Corrigan takes off from New York City, ostensibly heading for California. Unfortunately, he flies the wrong way and he lands in Ireland instead, hence his name, Wrong Way Corrigan. On August 6th, the Looney Tunes cartoon Porky and Daffy is released. On September 21st, the New England hurricane of 1938 strikes Long Island and southern New England, killing over 300 along the Rhode Island shoreline and approximately 600 killed in total. We don't normally think about hurricanes way up in the New England states. September 26th, in a virtual speech at Berlin Sports Arena, Hitler defies the world and implies war with Czechoslovakia will begin at any time. On September 29th, the Munich Agreement. Germany, Italy, British, and French leaders agree to the German demands regarding the annexation of the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia. On September 30th, Neville Chamberlain returns to Britain from the meeting with Adolf Hitler and declares, quote, "Peace for our time." He was widely ridiculed in years later after this because there was no peace. October 1st, German troops march into the Sudetenland. Now, I don't know about you, but I didn't know what this was or where it is. Let me show you. This is Czechoslovakia, and this is the Sudetenland, the western sliver, and here is Germany. So Germany demanded that Czechoslovakia give them back this portion, and Hitler marched his troops in to take over this western chunk of Czechoslovakia. On October 18th, the German government expels 12,000 Polish Jews living in Germany. The Polish government accepts 4,000 and refuses admittance to the remaining 8,000 who are forced to live in the no man's land on the German-Polish frontier. On October 30th, Orson Welles' radio broadcast of The War of the Worlds is broadcast, causing panic in various parts of the United States. When I was in college, I did a research paper on this broadcast. There were a lot of people that, what happened is, if you didn't tune in at the very beginning, you didn't know that this was a radio play. So what happened is, people tuned in after the start, and they thought it was real. They thought we were really being invaded by Martians. And you can imagine it caused panic all over the eastern part of the United States because they thought Martians were landing and invading. November 1st, the horse racing. Seabiscuit defeats War Admiral by 4 lengths in their famous match race at Pimlico Racecourse in Baltimore, Maryland. This was considered the race of the century. I mean, Seabiscuit is one of the most, if not the most famous name in racing history. November 9th, Kristallnacht. In Germany, the Night of Broken Glass, that's what Kristallnacht means, begins as Nazi activists and sympathizers loot and burn Jewish businesses. The all-night affairs sees 7,500 Jewish businesses destroyed, 267 synagogues burned, 91 Jews killed, and at least 25,000 Jewish men arrested. Kristallnacht. On November 10th, on the eve of Armistice Day, Kate Smith sings Irving Berlin's God Bless America for the first time on her weekly radio show. For years and years and years, Kate Smith was famous for singing God Bless America. On December 1st, Adolf Hitler is Time magazine's Man of the Year as the most influential person of the year. A lot of people were upset about this and still are. It's not that he was admirable. That's not why Time put him on the cover. They put him on the cover because he was the most influential. He was changing the world. On December 15th, President Franklin Roosevelt agrees to lend $25 million to Chiang Kai-shek of China to help fund his war efforts against Japan. Now, remember, this is 1938. Pearl Harbor was 3 years later in 1941. On December 16th, MGM releases its successful film version of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Here we see Ebenezer Scrooge. And it turns out when I was in the 8th grade, we had an all-school play, and we put on the play A Christmas Carol. And guess what part I played? I played Ebenezer Scrooge. Bah, humbug. Who was born way back in 1938? Wolfman Jack. Now, a lot of you young people will have no idea who he was. He was a disc jockey, and his radio station beamed all over the United States. It was a very, very powerful signal. Peter Yarrow. If you don't recognize that, this is the Peter in Peter, Paul, and Mary. Leon Panetta. This man was the Secretary of Defense, and at one time he was also the CIA director. The actress Natalie Wood, who drowned under mysterious circumstances on her husband's yacht. The Attorney General of the United States under President Clinton, Janet Reno. ABC News anchor, Peter Jennings. Peter Jennings and I have something in common. I worked for Apple for 30 years. And one year, Apple sent me to New York City to take a 2-day course in public presentations. The woman was named Gloria Simon. She charged $10,000 a day. So Apple spent $20,000 for me to take her 2-day course. It turns out Peter Jennings had also taken that same course. The actress Connie Stevens. The fabulous singer Kenny Rogers was born in 1938. The fabulous singer Ben E. King. His two biggest hits, Stand By Me and Under the Boardwalk. The rock and roll singer Eddie Cochran. His biggest hit was something called Summertime Blues. I have recorded this song and it's on YouTube. Go listen to it. Well, I'm a-gonna raise a fuss, I'm a-gonna raise a holler about working all summer just a-trying to earn $1. The stuntman Evel Knievel was born in 1938. The actor Christopher Lloyd, and I chose to show this picture because this is the picture most people will recognize him. In the movie Back to the Future, he played Doc Brown. The actor Jon Voight. What was introduced in 1938? You'll recognize most of these. Nestle's Crunch Chocolate Bar. The ballpoint pen. Nescafe coffee came out in 1938. Squirt. Very sour. The Old El Paso brand was established in 1938. It even says it on its label. Nylon was introduced, and the very first thing they used it for was the bristles of a toothbrush. The Z1 computer. Now, this was a mechanical computer. Lots of levers and gears and pulleys and things like that. Chocolate chip cookies were invented in 1938. They're often called Toll House cookies, and on the Nestle's chocolate is the recipe for them. Let me tell you, why are they called Toll House cookies? Because they were invented here. This is the Toll House Inn in Massachusetts. And in 1938, this lady, Ruth Graves Wakefield, invented the chocolate chip cookie here at the Toll House Inn. So now you know. The strobe light was invented in 1938. Who were the most popular singers in 1938? You'll recognize some of the names. Bing Crosby, Ella Fitzgerald, Fred Astaire, Mildred Bailey. Here's a name I didn't recognize. Billie Holiday. What were the most popular radio shows in 1938? There were no TV shows, so it was all radio. Number 1, The Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy Show. Number 2, The Fibber McGee and Molly Radio Show. Number 3, The Jack Benny Program. Number 4, Amos and Andy. It's always ironic that Amos and Andy was broadcast by two old white guys. And number 5, the Lux Radio Theater. What were the top grossing movies of 1938? Which ones made the most money? Coming in at number 1, Alexander's Ragtime Band, Tyrone Power, Alice Faye, Don Amici, names I recognize. Number 2, You Can't Take It With You. Number 3, Sweethearts, Jeanette MacDonald and Nelson Eddy. Number 4, Boys Town, starring Spencer Tracy and Mickey Rooney. Here's Spencer. Here's Mickey Rooney. A little personal note here. There is a real Boys Town in Nebraska. And for years and years and years, every Christmas, my grandmother would get a letter asking for donations to support Boys Town. And she always gave them money. For years and years, she sent money to Boys Town. Decades later, I worked for Apple Computer for 30 years. And I was sent to Boys Town in Nebraska. And I helped them create their very first computer lab. The movie Jezebel, starring Bette Davis. Nobody had eyes like her. A lot of you will recognize the song, Bette Davis Eyes. What were the most popular songs of 1938? Number 1, A Tisket a Tasket by Chick Webb Orchestra with vocals by Ella Fitzgerald. Coming in at number 2, My Reverie by Larry Clinton and his orchestra. Number 3, Begin the Beguine by Artie Shaw and his orchestra. This one I recognize. Number 4, Tippy Tin by Horace Heidt and his Brigadiers. Can't say that I know this one. Number 5, Music Maestro Please by Tommy Dorsey and his orchestra. Who won the Academy Awards back in 1938, the big three? The Academy Award for Best Actor went to this gentleman, Spencer Tracy, in the movie Captains Courageous. The Academy Award for Best Actress went to this lady, Louise Rayner, for the movie The Good Earth. And the Academy Award for Best Production, there was no Best Picture back then. They called it the Best Production. Anyway, the Academy Award for Best Production went to this movie, which I'd never heard of, The Life of Émile Zola. I had to look him up. He was a French writer and philosopher. He won 2 Nobel Prizes. So anyway, it was a movie about his life. Can't say that I ever saw it. The average annual salary was $1,300. Let me convert that into today's dollars so we can really compare what it is. Today, that would be a salary of $27,692. The average salary in America today is close to $70,000. So this would be a really, really lousy salary. The average cost of a new car was $600. You're looking at a 38 Ford here. In our dollars, that car would cost you $12,781. The average cost of a car in America today is getting close to $40,000. The average cost of a modest new home was $3,900, and this is a 1938 home you're looking at. In our dollars today, that house would cost $83,077. That's a really cheap house still. A gallon of gas cost 20 cents And you're thinking, wow, that's cheap. That is really cheap. No, it's not. Because in our dollars, that is $4.26 a gallon. I paid $2.63 a gallon this week. So gas was expensive. So thanks for watching. I hope you learned something and I hope you had some fun. Be well, my friends.